Hi, I'm Heidi.
Hi, I'm Nell.
We're one-to-one diet consultants, and this week we are going to talk about what do you say to the people in your life when you start this plan and you want to stick to it?
Also, this was born out of a conversation I had through the Slimmer this week. What do you say to people when you are still on this plan? Because you know how inconvenient it gets where the sun comes out and you've lost so much weight and you're doing so brilliantly. You don't just have to firefight these kind of things, these kind of myth busting and objections when you start plan, but people get a hump even when it works fantastically
Oh,
well.
or you're coming
Remotely
back to it.
inconvenient at the bottomless brunch, because you're pursuing your own goals and you're putting your boundaries in place, and God, that can really irk some people. So
Yeah. Well, I've had a few people who aren't doing the plan for the first time are like, they're worried their friends are gonna be like, "Oh, are you doing that plan again?"
yeah,
And
yeah,
and they already can feel the tension. They've not even had the conversation and they feel tense about
yeah,
it.
I'm still working on my own goals. I'm still working on my weight loss, still trying to figure this out, still trying to level up and get this sorted. It's not even a case of when people do plan again, it's often not the same weight that they're losing. It's that they're
No.
coming back to us because they know it works. And sometimes it's about kind of going in phases. Sometimes they'll be coming to lose the next couple of stone, or they'll be coming back to do a kind of medium middle step and just work out
Yes. I
their
was going to say, do a
maintenance plan
completely different
a bit
step. So it's not
better.
even the plan their friends think they know.
No, exactly. It can be a different, but essentially they're still doing the one-to-one,
Yeah.
even though that it will have evolved through conversation with us into the next phase. It's not always the relentless weight loss phase. So I don't want to, it's not like we're going around the same roundabout over and over again.
No.
But it's not your job. It's ours, in fact, but it's not your job to be myth busting constantly. We don't need to send you out there with a one-to-one diet t-shirt and leaflets to kind of try and soothe everybody's objections about meal replacement diets. But we thought we'd just be here today to kind of try and normalize that is a thing that happens, and to remind you that that's what we're here for in terms of being your consultant is, if your consultant isn't Heidi or I, that's their job, in order to kind of talk you through and coach you through, and oftentimes actually give you the words, furnish you with the means to push back on that in an assertive and friendly and helpful way, so that you can reassure the people in your life that you're in the right place doing the right thing, not in a kind of aggressive, shouty, upset kind of way, because you can feel quite henpecked when you're pardon me, when you're on plan and people are objecting to you being on plan, and maybe to unpack some of the motives and reasons why people do that, around peer pressure and sometimes feeling threatened by other people, their weight loss and all of that kind of stuff, because it does come up on everybody's weight loss plan.
Yeah.
There will come times where the thing that we want to avoid most is you falling foul of peer pressure, and then feeling demoralized and coming into your appointment feeling like you've done something wrong because it got the better of you and you wished you hadn't and you didn't want to eat it in the first place. And how can I armor up a little bit so that I can stick to my plan next time without feeling like I have to hide away and not see my friends, or avoid my mother-in-law because she's a bit of a feeder. All of this kind of stuff does come up on plan, and it's the kind of stuff that we're really good at, because we want the diet to fit around your life without you selling yourself short and feeling like you've undone it all because of a barbecue on a Saturday because you didn't want to tell your friends that you were on plan. So
Yes.
that's sort of, we want to say that all of this is important stuff. And although you can put your blinkers on and go a bit sort of, robot mode and stay on the lower steps, all of this stuff is going to happen. We did a video recently on how to deal with events, and that, like you say, Heidi, kind of came
Yeah.
at it but from a slightly different angle. Today we want to
Yes.
talk a little bit more about sometimes those more problematic comments that you get about being on plan, meeting people's disapproval sometimes, because meal replacements are very misunderstood still, although they're becoming more mainstream. So how do we, how are we gonna start that conversation, or more importantly, how are we going to shut it down
Yes.
so that
So,
people leave us alone to get on with it?
um, this is your permission slip to tell someone that you are happy with the plan that you have made and you do not wish to discuss it any further with them, and
Thank
that
you
you are
so much.
absolutely fine. And that, you are allowed to say, I'm absolutely fine I'm doing everything I need to do. I'm being monitored. It's all grand, actually. I'm really happy. And we're not going to have this conversation again. You're just going to have
Yeah,
to accept that.
and respect the fact that everybody has areas of their life that are private, and that I would rather not talk about this
Yeah.
here and now in front of. Having your eating audited and inspected in public is, for want of a kind of current phrase, can be very triggering.
Yeah.
And it might be, you know, water off a duck's back for some people, but when we feel like our eating is under the microscope and we have been struggling with the responsibility of our eating, maybe our weight's been going up, or we've only recently started on plan and we're not quite trusting of ourselves yet, it can be particularly off-putting to have a group of people, especially around a table where there's food, pointing it out.
Yes.
And sometimes it can be done, oftentimes it's done with great insensitivity. So
Yeah.
know that that is completely normal, but also know that we are somewhat flagging ourselves by going on meal replacement and still being in those situations for that kind of incident to arise. Because if we're going to sit there with the mineral water, we're going to have to be prepared that it's quite natural that our friends and oftentimes it can come out as concern. Sometimes that's not entirely genuine. I think we probably all have recognized that kind of situation. Oh, what are you up to? Oftentimes in the office or the staff room, you're the most interesting thing happening.
Yes.
On the gossip girl spectrum, you're the biggest
Yeah.
difference right now. So
Have
we
you
all
seen
want to
Jane?
be.
She's lost
Yeah.
so much weight, and she seems to be eating cup of soups and this really yummy looking chocolate bar in the afternoons. I don't understand how she's doing it, because that's what we're all eating, right?
And sometimes it can come out as, oh, how you do, you know, why are you doing that? You know, why are you doing that? Because if you need to lose weight, then what does that say about me? Don't underestimate the girl in the office's id. It's often about the ego. It's often about feeling a little
Oh,
threatened.
are you having a dessert? No, I'm fine, thanks. They're not asking because they're interested in what you want for dessert. They want a dessert and they need you to have one too, so they feel better about it.
Yeah, oftentimes it comes up in a kind of more no, not passive aggressive sort of way, but
Yeah,
an
a little
aggression of
bit
a
more
diet.
subtle.
So it can come out as kind of a kind of concern of lack of knowledge on
Yeah.
somebody's part. So you know you know, and we get this from medics as well. You know, somebody goes in to have their wellness check and the diet comes up, and 1 second they're being congratulated on losing a whole bunch of weight, but the next minute the how is come into question because they haven't done it in a way that somebody deems more appropriate. And one of the things that massively helps us is this week there was it's been all over the headlines that the NHS is going to start using more meal replacement. There's more and more clinical research coming out, and now not only do we have that, but we're also having the long-term data on maintenance. Pardon me, that's been coming in through osteoarthritis studies that have been happening from the pressure that are coming off people's joints by using meal replacement. Those trials were done years ago, but now we're getting increased data further out. So we've got 5 years
And
data.
we were part of some of those trials, weren't we?
Weight
Now,
loss
we were
maintenance.
part
We
of the direct
absolutely.
study and the droplet study, which has informed some of the information the NHS now has to make those decisions.
Exactly. And also the one about osteoarthritis that
Yeah.
was done, I want to say, in Denmark. I want to say in Denmark. So we have a lot of this information that we can share. I mean, there's links to all sorts of things that we can share underneath, but certainly the kind of splash headlines about putting diabetes into remission, that was done with a non-commercial version of one-to-one products. There is very little support. You don't get the consultants. So and also you don't get all of the bars. This leads me to the next common misconception, which is, oh, you're doing those shakes, and putting us in the same kind of parameters as Slim Fast and other non-full meal replacement protein shakes, which is not what we are and it's not what we claim to be. But you can understand why that
Yeah.
would, you know, that's the same as that. You know, it's like looking at two cars and totally different price ranges as going, well, that's got four wheels and an engine, so that's the same as that.
Well,
We
and
all know in
also,
every other area of life
yeah,
that these things are not, you know, tiers of, you know, they're not the same thing at all.
no.
And
And
one is
we've
much
been
more
around a long
efficient,
time.
and one,
So,
yes,
because we've
but
been around 40 years,
we
some
have
people
also evolved
remember
and
this.
changed.
Yeah, they remember it from the 80s, the 90s. It's not the same products. It's not the same product range. It's not the same plans. We have evolved as science has evolved. We are a forward-thinking company that really does monitor
Yeah,
all of those
and a
studies
lot
and
of
things
product
and changes
development.
along the
But there are
way.
also like other top tier things, there are also knockoff versions
Yeah.
that are pretending to be us. There are, you know, all, you know, so I completely understand it. that's my job. As a slimmer who is on plan and maybe struggling to, they're just getting to the point where they're really loving what they're achieving because they trust themselves a bit more. They trust the advice they're being given. They trust us and the plans and everything. And then to be kind of in that situation where you don't know everything that Heidi and I just rattled off, and it's not your job. The
No.
easiest thing to do is to say, thanks for your concern, because I think always assuming that it's coming from a
Yeah.
good place is a good place to be. And don't feel attacked personally, and say, thanks for your concern. I completely understand all of that. Even sometimes I may have even felt the same myself at one point, but I do have my consultant and I am being well supervised. I've asked all of these questions and I don't need to know all of these things. Well, how are you going to keep it off? Well, what's going to happen next? Well, you can't have that forever. I don't need to know all of that because Heidi knows, because Nell knows, because my consultant knows. And this is a bespoke plan that fits for me right now. And I'm doing really well on it. And it really politely shuts somebody down in their tracks. Remember that the more kind of confrontational that somebody gets, they're often the first people to come and ask you how. They're often the first people to come and ask for my phone number as well. So sometimes, although it can come out a bit like, oh my God, I don't really want to talk about this right now, oftentimes it is just somebody kind of going, have you found something that works? What is it? I need to know everything.
Yeah, they might be
And
like,
suddenly you
well,
feel
you
like you're
can't
a
do that forever. And you're
you
like,
feel like you're a
well,
one
that's not the
person.
plan.
No, and you feel like a one person marketing team, and that's not your job.
No.
So we want to equip you with ways of being able to kind of respectfully put your boundary in place. And with the oh, but go on, surely you can have one. But surely you can have a little bit. But if it was a proper diet, then you'd be able to just have a little bit and just be able to and just adjust, just you hear that a lot. And oftentimes it is their gremlin, not yours, that is leaping up and kind of bursting
Yeah,
forth.
and there's nothing wrong with saying I could I could have that if I wanted to, but I'm choosing not to right now because that's the best choice for me. And sometimes I know it's hard to have those like real life conversations with a person in front of you. So if you have something come out, so if you're going out with friends and you're all in a WhatsApp group, you're having and you know you're going to have to broach subject because you're planning to just go and have a Diet Coke and eat your choc chewy bar at the pub, and they're all going to get snacks and things, say in the WhatsApp, I'm just giving you a heads up. I can't wait to see you all. I'm so excited. I'm not going to be eating this evening. Just giving you a heads up, but I can't wait to see you all. Feel free to order whatever you want. I just didn't want it to be weird when I got there. And
Yes.
then it won't be mentioned in front of your face so
Always ahead of
much.
time is much easier. Don't try and fly beneath anybody's radar. You actually put a great big target on your middle of your forehead. You make it more noticeable. If you want to have a product, be out and be proud. Don't try and eat it in the toilets and pretend that and behave like you're doing something wrong or with any kind of subterfuge, because when you are wildly successful and lose your weight, they're going to notice anyway. Another thing to do is to have that very candid conversation about how this is what I want to do. I'm not having to. I think we've all
Yeah.
been in those scenarios, like you just laid out with our girlfriends, for example, in the pub. And if you are miserable and you look unhappy and
They're
you
going to
are
be worried for you.
exactly, and you're
They
full
don't
of
want you
should
to be
and
miserable.
can't and mustn't and not allowed, if you behave like you're doing this under duress, then I think we've all been that person. We've all been with that person and we've all said, oh Nelly, do get on and
Yeah.
eat it,
Your
stop it,
friends
knock it
your
off,
friends are going
you
to want
seem
to rescue
miserable.
you.
Yes,
If you come up
I want to
saying,
make you
oh,
happy.
this is terrible, but I'm having to do it again, they're all going to say, don't
Yeah,
do that horrible thing again. There's other
don't do that. Exactly, don't go there again. Exactly. But if you are thrilled with the results and you're on plan and you've pushed the reset button so hard and you don't want to have just one drink, because even just one drink is not on your plan and you don't want to do it, then you can tell them beforehand, like Heidi said. Also, don't what they're often worried about is that you're going to be miserable and that
Yes.
that you're not going to be
That
able
you're
to
going to
have
ruin the fun.
that you're going to break ranks slightly, because if I'm going down, I want to take you with me, because a lot
Yeah.
of our eating and drinking is codependent. It's because we're doing it together. Like Heidi said earlier, I wouldn't have the pudding if I was on my own, but if you're going to have a pudding, I'm going to have a pudding. But if that pudding is going to make you miserable on plan, then you have to tell them. You have to say, I've had the pudding last time. I'm on my plan and it's going brilliantly. It's working. I'm really enjoying it. It's something I get to do. And you don't have to, I can dance on tables stone cold sober. I probably wouldn't be drinking anyway. But that's years after going through this process myself and figuring out my own boundaries, and, you know, actually that nothing terrible happens, you know, because I'm still there and I'm chatting and I'm having a nice time with my friends, and they're having a nice time in my company as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
It's the staring at somebody else as they're eating. It's very off-putting, you know, watching them like Wimbledon, watching their mouth go back, their fork go back and forth to their plate. That's what we're trying to avoid for their sake as well as yours.
Yes, and there is nothing wrong if you were on a higher step and you've gone out for dinner with your friends and you've had your main, it's within your calories, and you're like, I'm doing great, and they like you want a dessert. You don't have to necessarily be like, can't have one of those, I'm on a plan. You could just be, do you know what? I'm super full, so I think I'm going to pass this time. It doesn't have to be blatant, especially if they already know that you're on a plan. They're just being polite, asking you, just in case. So you
Yes,
can
a
just
lot
say,
of it, like
I'm
you say,
full.
exactly that. It's social convention. And I think when we are happy with what we're doing, our friends are happy. So I know we got a little bit, sometimes it can come out a little bit bitchy, like we said earlier, in the staff room or in the, you know, because people aren't really invested. They're just kind of being a bit thoughtless and people blurt stuff out. But when we're in those more intimate with friends and family, when we're in those more intimate situations, they do want to make us happy, and they are happy if we are happy.
Yes.
So if we say, I found this thing, it's working, I'm doing really well, or indeed I'm still doing that thing, and I'm sorry if that's mildly inconvenient because I've actually been doing it, but I have also lost a ton of weight and this is going really well, they are happy for us. The other thing to remember is that people often want to help. If
Yeah.
they know that you're doing brilliantly and that's what you, then we're going to be there with bells on. Tell me what you can eat. Send them the step 2 list. Okay, right. So we're going to do the barbecue, but we're going to do the chicken and green pepper skewers for Heidi. And then we're, you know, it's not then turning up and springing it on somebody, but I wish you'd told me. And then I could have got you the bag of green salad, or I could have done it's sometimes I think when we're on plan, we over internalize that responsibility because we don't want to inconvenience people. And what we'll often hear from people is, oh, but it's my mother-in-law, or I don't absolutely wouldn't have that conversation with my work colleagues. I don't want them to know. And so we try and overcompensate with, you know, there will always be those situations where there's a buffet and we have to make best decisions. Like, we know what's on the step 2 list, so I can choose most wisely. There, absolutely respect that there will be some certain circles in which you do not want to tell people that you are dieting. It's none of their business. You
Yes.
don't have that
And
relationship.
there are strategies you can employ, and we love to chat through those strategies with our
And
slimmers
that's
about
exactly the
how
kind of
you are going
thing
to do that.
with our one-to-one appointments. And oftentimes that's a lot of what we talk about, is how to work around things and people so that we're not an inconvenience, but nor are we selling ourselves short
Yeah.
or throwing our own goals away or compromising what we want to abate other people's opinions. Because sometimes, you know, our weight gain or where we're at often impacts our self-esteem to the extent that we really struggle to put in place our own boundaries, and we can really then internalize the guilt and the shame of wishing we could stand up for ourselves and we could advocate for ourselves. We hear a lot about, I wish I could just be like my friend such and such who can just say no and everyone listens to her.
Yeah.
But
A lot
I
of the
feel like
times
I
we
say
become,
no and suddenly nobody listens to me. It's a
yeah.
lot of, oh, but you did last, oh, but you did, oh, but it's you, oh, but you're, and that's what's so difficult, is that we are changing
Yeah.
people's perception of us and our boundaries, and change is difficult, and
And
change even,
sometimes it's a little bit triggering for other
and
people.
even when it's change for the good and in the right
Yes.
direction. You know, we are very used to playing the part that we play in our own lives and in our friends and families' lives, and we don't want to rock the boat. But like I say, this is all part of not just losing the weight, it's how we're going to keep it off as well.
Yes.
And just as a final one from me, no is a full sentence. It's a really difficult thing to learn. A lot of us do really struggle with us being assertive and putting up with a lot and selling ourselves short until sometimes it bursts out and it can come out as aggressive. And that's not what we're trying to practice here at all. But setting our boundaries in place, not just for the people in our lives, but for ourselves. It's setting boundaries with ourselves that we have to start with. That is at the root of all of this. Everything that we've talked about today will become easier if we can respect our own boundaries. So when we agree to be on plan, we will always be tempted and we will always try and talk ourselves in and out of things. But no is a full sentence, and that is worthy of respect from yourself and from people in your life. You know, could I? Yes. Well, of course you can. You're a grown adult. You can change the rules all the time. But learning to set and respect your own boundaries is an incredibly liberating thing to be able to do. And that's in lots of areas of our lives. But it really comes down to, you have to believe it if you want anyone
Yes.
else to.
Yes,
So
exactly.
you have to
And
be able to take that no for an answer if you expect your
yeah,
mother-in-law to be able to.
well, and also if you say no 17 times, you say no thank you to your mother-in-law, eventually someone else's family is going to go, Barbara, stop asking her, she said
She said
no.
no.
Like, Jesus, woman.
But
But
equally,
also,
you feel like, actually, oh, do you know what? I sounded like I meant that.
yes,
Okay. No isn't.
exactly.
No, thank you.
Because
That's
we
enough.
often have become those people pleasers, those people that just give in, avoid confrontation. We in trying to make ourselves smaller and smaller, we slightly got larger and larger. I'm talking from personal
Well,
experience.
isn't that the truth?
And if it is someone else that's not in your family, that might be in your partner's family, and they are supportive, use them. Get them to head off the mother-in-law, get them to have the conversation before the event, get them to run interference on the day.
Run interference is such a good phrase, Heidi. That's
Run
perfect.
interference
Put
on
the
the day.
potato salad on their plate.
They see her approaching, they swoosh in, they are there. You can quickly slip out the back. They've
Yeah,
distracted them
you've asked
talking
her
about the
4 times now. She
potatoes.
really did mean no, thank you.
Yeah,
With the greatest respect.
all
Back
of
up.
those things are valid. And as is, not saying anything for the time being and just being polite and saying, no, I'm great, thanks for the offer, and just moving on and busying yourself. Usually with the children, they're a very good distraction.
Oh,
um
human body shield. There is
Human
just
body
one
shield.
more thing that actually came up quite recently, is that thing of a decoy. I'm not
Yes.
having the red wine, but, and giving somebody, that thing when you're hosting, just put yourself on the flip side of being Barbara for a minute. All Barbara wants is to be a good host. She wants to
Yeah.
hit pillow tonight, knowing that she did
Yep.
it. That's where she's getting her kicks from, right? So if you just keep rejecting that love and that nurture, I know it was coming. How many times have you heard people in your appointment say to you, I know it was coming from a good place and I didn't want to upset her and I wanted to, and yes, I wanted to be strong and my own boundaries, but also it was Barbara and I know that she was really looking forward to me being there and all of that. So I will have a Diet Coke, thank you.
Yes.
Actually, because it didn't matter that it wasn't the wine. She just wanted to do the
Yeah.
thing that she was
I
doing, being the
really,
host.
I don't want, I'm not fancying that. Could I just have a cup of tea? Would that be all right?
Perfect. It's the
Whatever
perfect
they've got.
decoy.
And if you are going to a family barbecue buffet, say to them, oh, I'd love to help. I'll bring a salad and some chicken skewers.
Perfect.
Just don't
Perfect.
ask, just say you're bringing them as if you're
Yes.
being helpful. And
Yeah,
then you know
turn up and
that's
say,
what you're going to do.
I found this new elderflower, don't know about sugar free. I found this new elderflower presse. I thought it would be lovely. And then you drink your own. I
Yeah.
brought my own, fizzy water and put it with everybody else's. And then
Yeah.
when you're not drink,
I thought I would help out. I've brought some diet soda. I hope that's okay. Feel
yeah,
free to all share it,
yes,
like
exactly. I'd love it in a wine glass. Have you got any ice? Oh, yes, I have got ice. It's the I want to scratch my hostess itch, not really police what you're eating and drinking. I want to know that you're having a nice time. That's really important to me.
yeah.
And you can facilitate that for somebody without rejecting their care and their nurture. A lot of time that is where it's coming from. And we don't mean to criticize you for wanting to work on your personal goals. People aren't unpleasant like that, but we want to feel that you can still have a nice time. I'm not going to lose you. Too much isn't going to change.
Yes.
And so we can all get on board with this being nothing but positive, a
Yeah.
positive thing for you. And that is a lesson to learn for keeping the weight off. That's a lesson to learn for
Oh,
forever and
100%.
always.
And one top tip, in case you are having to go to a barbecue or a buffet this weekend, um, you don't have to eat it. Just have a plate with something on. It could be a plate that you are surreptitiously then just feeding your small child with, and you're just holding it for them. But if you have a plate with something on, even if it's some green leaves, nobody bothers you. They don't offer you food because you have food. If you don't have a plate at all, sometimes people get a bit jumpy and they're like, oh, she hasn't got anything. Let me be the hostess. Let me
Yes.
help them out. But if you have a small plate, even if it's a few sausage rolls that you're feeding your 4-year-old and you're holding it whilst they go round on Thomas the Tank Engine, then it's all grand. They
Yes.
won't offer you
And
anything.
that
So
like kind of
small
takes it straight back
tactics.
round to, you can have had some caramel bites in the car before you go in, and know that you can have your shake on the, or your on the backside of that. You don't have to be standing in the middle of that situation wearing the 1-to-1 banner and eating, eating
Yes,
your
you don't have to
bowl.
have a big flashing neon
No,
sign above your
exactly.
head.
We don't want you to hide away. You have nothing to be ashamed of doing the one-to-one. Absolutely nothing. I think that's where I was getting at with the
Yeah,
sometimes, it works for people to kind of push back with a bit of the clinical research and say
sure.
it's been around for 40 years. Maybe that's your jam, but as we get to know you on a one-to-one basis in our meetings, we'll know the best way to kind of maybe feed you the lines that you're going to need. And it depends on who the person is. Some people really like going down that very, I've got my consultant, talk to her about it. The amount of people I do talk to as well, it is lovely to be able to offer that. That will often scare them off. Well, I
Yeah.
don't know all of the ins and outs. It's
Why
working
don't
for
you
me.
chat to my
But you
consultant?
can always go and chat to Nell and Heidi, and they go, "Oh no,
You're all right. You're all good. I've seen them on
they've got a
YouTube.
YouTube channel. You could go and find out all about it if you like."
I think that's the thing, we work very heavily, as the name would describe, one to one with all of our slimmers
Yeah,
to look at what the challenges are, whatever they were may be, but especially around this sort of topic, how to deal with those events, how to deal with chatting to family members, how to deal with managing being on plan whilst living your actual life,
yeah.
practical strategies that work for not everybody, but for you, how it's going to work for you. What is your specific challenge with your mother-in-law? What is that situation with your friends? What does that event look like? What do
Because it's
you
not
want
about
out of it?
what you eat or what you don't eat. It was never the food. It's about our relationship with food, certainly. It's about our relationship with ourselves, oftentimes, and our relationships in a broader sense as well. How can we communicate in a way that backs up our boundaries, without feeling like we are doing something, wrong or inconveniencing to inconvenient to anybody else. It is possible for this to be an entirely positive experience,
Yes.
and not, and just telling you to put your blinkers on and be stronger or want it more, never in any doubt. It's much more practical and much more interesting than that, actually, because once you can clear some of that path, then it becomes an inevitability. Then you start to believe it more as well, and you can. And it's so relaxing when you can turn up to a family event and they know what's on the step 2 list, and they've done you a bit of cold chicken on the side as well as the salad, and you can still sit and eat your step 2 meal with the family and feel like
And
this is
realize it was not about the food whatsoever.
exactly, and feel like this really is the plan for you, and then you can really go all the way. So
Yeah.
when we're not just head down and sort of winging it, it is
No.
a structured plan, and it does have a lot of that kind of thing that goes into it. But how fantastic would that be if that's the thing that's holding you back, to get in touch with me and Heidi now, and we can see you through the summer. Don't start looking at the summer diary thinking, oh well, actually it's going to be really busy, so well I'll wait until that's out of the way, and look, I've got to go to that wedding, so I'll wait until that's done and then I'll get in touch with them. Because by September you'll still be where you are now, and potentially even
Oh,
and annoyed with yourself, and we don't want that.
100%.
We'd
I've
rather.
had a slimmer that got on plan with me a few months ago. She's been on 3 holidays already, but we are still a stone down, and she's maintained after everyone, and she ate what she wanted.
Yeah, because it's
There is
never
a
going to
way
be
to
the
do
perfect
it.
time, because this real life stuff is going to happen. And I always
Yes.
want you to go. I never want you to not go. I never want you to not live your life. I want you to be able to embrace, the change and the progress that we're making around real life, because that's what maintenance is going to look like as
Yeah.
well. Don't get me wrong. If you can get into a slipstream where you've just, head
You've got
down
a clear
and you
month or so. It's
absolutely,
nice.
maybe then you drop down the steps, but that's not
It's not a
really
prerequisite.
exactly. It's not worth waiting for that,
Yes.
because we can all sit and wait for the stars to align, but actually jump in and we will figure it out together. That's how we managed to come up with all these examples just off the top of our heads without
Yeah.
any preparation. Because this is actually what the conversations that we're having weekly.
They're very nuanced conversations. That is the benefit of having that weekly consultation with a good consultant who, like us, is just so passionate about making it work for you.
Mm.
We absolutely love a challenge. So if you're thinking, oh my God, I've got 100 events over summer, they're never going to be able to deal with that. Bring it on, baby. Get in touch. We love it. We hope this has helped you this week. Our contact details are in the description box as always. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a future upload. We are here every Tuesday. Can you believe that? We will see you next week. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye.